So check this out. If you get the Shawnee pre-order bonus, you will be playing with 31 Civs on day one. And that is more than any other Civilization game for Civs on day one. Yes.
Yes, that's right. 30 civilizations, 31 if you care to pay for the extra privilege on day one. The most a Civ game has ever seen. Perhaps not surprising considering the game has 3 ages. For some more headline news, let's take another listen.
And every Civ has a unique military unit. They also have a unique civilian unit. Some of those Civs will have great people. People. There's 10 great people per great people. It is absolutely incredible how many units there are. Not to mention the standard units, the archers and the warriors and trebuchets and that sort of thing. So yeah, we have tons and tons of units, hundreds of units to choose from.
And that probably rounds out the headline news, the sort of key overarching features. However, they talked about a lot more while they were down under in Australia, and we'll return to this, combat, units, and all sorts a little later in the video. For now, though, I'd like to quickly turn our attention to the leader announcement that was made about a day ago. This is Ashoka, leader of the Morians, and perhaps not news to you in of itself. However, the new trailer revealed that Ashoka will have 2 different personalities, 2 different personas. They also revealed in the trailer that Persia will exist. They mentioned that Ashoka should be, or historically would be perhaps, the leader of India, the Mauryans, again. However, Persia was also sort of soft announced here. A new civilization, of course, in Civ 7, and perhaps one that you probably expected to be in the game. Nonetheless, some interesting new gameplay footage. Perhaps the most important part here, though, are these things. Expansionist, diplomatic, leader attributes on the one hand. Or alternatively, of course, if you're playing the other version of Ashoka, you'll be a militarist diplomatic leader. This one, they talked about the history behind it. He essentially moidered his brother to take power. And so you can kind of play this leader in 2 different parts of their journey. Not too dissimilar from what we've seen already with Napoleon, right? His emperor version or not. And returning back to Ashoka, we see +1 food and cities for 5 excess happiness. And that extra happiness is another important thing that we'll see return again. All buildings gain +1 happiness from adjacency and some extra food. If you're playing as the Conqueror, again, extra happiness and production on settlements that he didn't found, right? A clear link to the conquest mechanic there. And finally, rounding out the Conqueror, some extra combat strength against districts for units during a celebration. That's the extra sort of excess happiness mechanic. Now we're returning to what I think is a pretty cool graphic as we transition back to their time in Australia. A roughly 1 hour long live stream, and I've picked out the highlights, some you've seen already. Let's return now to the somewhat stumbled conversation, shifting its focus towards the huge variety of units and civilizations in Civ 7.
Seeing the city not confined to that 1 hex and kind of sprawling out a bit is pretty nice. How did you approach it differently then?
And so here the conversation turns to a load of things. Like I say, Civs, leaders, also cities, Civ design, artwork. Here you're seeing the appropriately shown Great Barrier Reef, a 4-tile natural wonder focusing in on science, food, and a little bit of happiness. The other thing that they focused on, as well as showing us some of the terrain, of course navigable rivers are new here too, were natural disasters. These make their obvious return from Civilization 6. However, in Civ 7, they are included in the base game. And that's an important point of difference that was maybe a little bit overlooked last time we talked about this. My bad. They are now in the base game, not a paid extra. Focusing in on variations, artwork, look, style, the aesthetics of what we're seeing, units and districts seem to have more variety than ever. Let's take another listen on units this time.
If we look at this lineup, we have, down at the bottom, Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. It starts off with kind of like warring city-states, Proto-Greeks, then followed by Greeks, followed by Roman Empire. The Exploration Age goes into the Norman invasion, then the height of chivalry, followed by the kind of a Renaissance period, which is awesome for exploration. I mean, that's when they're finding, the new land and distant lands, and then, of course, once you find some distant land, what do you want to do? You want to plant a flag, right? Start of imperialism with the Napoleonic era, followed by World War I, and then World War II, as you start to master mechanized warfare.
I sped that one up a little bit, that's why the voice sounded a bit unusual, but you have to take it for what it's showing you, which is essentially the team is focused in on unit artwork aesthetics But more than that too, they've tried to keep it culturally appropriate, and there are other things that we'll learn about in just a moment, like unit animations and composition, that are unique to every single unit, even if you build two of the same, like two spearmen. Take a listen.
Here's an example of one of the units in the game, the Phalanx, which is a late antiquity unit. So if you look all the way over to the left, you can see that there's Roman, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, African, all the way to South American. So it just showcases like one unit, but all of the different looks and armor sets that define all of these different cultures. Made up of many different characters or members, different weapons, different animation sets, different shields, different armor configurations. This is all done, in an effort to make all of the characters feel real, like they're real people coming from their homes and lands and joining into battle, but not just a bunch of little droids.
Yeah, it's different. Like these are in the same game. These are both the same unit.
Yep.
Different composition every time you create them.
And the key is probably right at the end there. Different composition, different animations, potentially, different look and feel, despite it being the same type of unit. Now we take a look at combat. What you saw there was obviously Civilization 6's combat, and here is obviously a little bit of a rudimentary take on how it will work in Civilization 7. The key that they stressed here was that they're trying to make the combat feel responsive. Feel like you have agency when you make the decision, you actually see it play out. The weapons, shields, configurations, animations, of course, all unique, and hopefully that will make for a better rounded combat. They also briefly talked about the different commanders and how they have a unique feel for the civilization, the culture that you're playing. Another nice touch. The final, perhaps nice touch here on the aesthetics, focused in on the independent peoples, who you will see a lot of as you transition through from Age 1 to Age 2. The end of antiquity will see the rise of loads of barbarian states, if we want to use that classic term. The independent peoples, of course, will be a bit different. More diplomatic interactions, engagements, basically more opportunities than we've had in previous Civilization games. Think the barbarian clan on steroids, and they have their own unique artwork, as you can see here too. Another great touch. They then turned a little bit into the detail, talking about the intricacies with the design, the historical learnings and context that went into it. It was pretty impressive. And then finally, they shifted towards this announcement.
Good.
Our leaders are really cool. You're right, though. There was something we were supposed to talk about.
Weren't they supposed to remind us?
Yeah, does someone remember?
Oh, you want a new leader?
Louder.
Okay, I heard a yes. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
And while the crowd might have missed their opportunity to embrace that announcement, this was of course the Vietnamese leader Trung Trac, a militaristic, scientific leader, and hopefully one that I reckon actually will probably be pretty decent to play. They dislike leaders with highly promoted commanders, and you'll see why right now. Their commanders receive a whopping +3 promotions, at least on the first one, as well as an extra experience buff as they fight. This is potentially super strong. You could deploy your units very quickly, and your science will be boosted as well, doubled while in a formal war declared by you, plus 10% on your preferred cities. Tropical and vegetated is the bias here. And that brings us toward the end of this week's pretty exciting news for Civilization 7. Maybe not enough each individual item by itself for me to make a video, but one heck of a recap here. Thank you also for the big subscriber push last time, hey? Hey, we might actually reach 100k by Civ 7 Day. You subscribe to the channel more than you would in something like 2 weeks in one day. So thanks for the big push, Chiefs. Much appreciated. Finally, a couple of quick highlights that didn't really fit anywhere else, but were important. They talked a little bit about the exploration age. It will have similar risks and dangers to exploring the map early on, but with specific oceanic or environmental dangers. Think things like the goodie huts, but also I'm thinking events will be laced in here. They're going to have to try and bring in some kind of militarism as well, of course, just to make it that little bit more difficult. They're still fairly light on detail around the exploration age and the modern age that we can see briefly pictured here though, so I'm going to wrap up this conversation right here. Thank you for joining me. Another whirlwind week of Civilization 7 news. We are now, what is the date today? The 21st of October. November, December, January, February. Hey, look, less than 4 months to go. So, thank you for watching. See you next time.